Morning children. Today we are going to discuss block 20, that is force, LP4. In our previous video we learned about the state of motion and the force. Today our aim is to explain how the net force depends upon the direction in which the force is applied. But before going to start, can you tell me, are there any forces acting on the stationary ball? Yes, there are forces acting on a stationary ball. But in our previous video, we learned that the forces create a motion. And here the ball is stationary. Then how the forces act on the stationary object? Let's find out. Forces occur in pair. Can be either balanced force or unbalanced force. Now we learn about these forces. During that time, your confusion regarding to that question will be cleared. First, we start with a balanced force. We consider the same example. Here, the ball is lying on the ground. At that time, the two forces acting on the ball. The first force is the force of gravity, which is due to the earth gravity. And we know the tendency of the earth to attract every object towards their center. Whenever the ball is at rest or in motion, there is always a force of gravity acting on it, and which is in a downward direction. There is another force which is called as force of reaction or normal force. The force of reaction provided by the ground to the balanced force of gravity. Children, if I ask what will be the resultant force of this ball? Yes, correct. The resultant force will be zero. How? Let's find out. When two forces act in opposite direction, then the resultant force or net force is equal to difference of these two forces. That is, the force of gravity minus the force of normal reaction. If both the forces are equal, then they cancel each other, and then net force is equals to 0. Children, you remember at the beginning of this video I asked one question. Are there any forces acting on the stationary ball? I hope you got the answer. Let us understand the concept of the net force or resultant force. In this picture, I have given a two situation. In the first situation, the object X is at rest and the two forces having a equal magnitude, that is of 10 Newton, acting in opposite direction. Whenever the two forces are acting in opposite direction, then the two forces are subtract each other. Here, the net force is equal to 10 Newton minus 10 Newton is equals to 0 Newton. In the another situation, the object Y, which is at rest, and the two forces of different magnitude, one having a 5 Newton and the other having a 20 Newton, acting in same direction. When the two forces are acting in same direction, then the two forces are added each other. Then the net force here 25 Newtons. Let's take an example of the balance force. But in a balance force, one important thing you have to note that if the net force on an object is 0, then the object is considered at rest. So we learn about the balance force. The balance force are the forces that does not cause motion of the body. Let's take an example of the balance force. In a game of tug of war, if the force applied by both the team of two sides is same or equal, the rope will not move. It means if two individual forces are of equal magnitude and opposite directions, the forces are said to be balanced. The balance force cancel each out, do not change the state of rest or motion of an object. This all about the balance forces. Let's summarize what we have studied. Number 1, at rest, also there are some forces acting on the object. Number 2, the equal and opposite forces that balance each other are called balance force. Number 3, if forces F1 and F2 acts in same direction, then net force is equal to F1 plus F2. If forces F1 and F2 acts in opposite direction, then net force is equal to F1 minus F2. And at last, if net force is 0, then no movements occur in the body. Now we discuss the another type of force, that is the unbalanced force. Unbalanced force are the forces in which the net force on the body is not equal to 0. Okay, what happened due to the unequal forces? Yes, the motion exists. Let's take the same example for the unbalanced force. In this picture, you can see that there are the two teams which is pulling the rope towards each other. The left hand side team exerting a pulling force of 450 Newton and the right hand side team exerting a force 390 Newton. The left hand side team exert a greater force than the other team. The rope will move toward the winning team. It means that unbalanced force occurs when the two opposite forces acting on an object are not equal in magnitude. Then unbalanced forces causes a still object to move or moving objects to slow down or speed up, stop or change the direction. So finally we can say that the motion only exists for the unbalanced forces. Let's summarize what we have studied. First is forces that causes a change in the motion of an object is called unbalanced forces. In the case number second, in the case of the unbalanced forces, the net force of an object is not equals to 0. And number third, unbalanced forces are actual forces that creates a motion. Now students, these are some questions. Now pause the video and try to answer each of them. Number 1, what happened when both of you were pushing against each other? Who won or why? Yes, when you pushed against each other, you both exerted a force on each other. Since this force is being exerted from opposite sides, whoever exerted a greater force was able to win. The second question: at what point were the forces balanced? Yes, when two people or team when two people or team complete in a tug of war, both exert a pulling force. If the team are equally strong, then even on pulling as hard as they can, both of them would seem to be winning. At this point, the forces are balanced. And the last question: what is the net force? Yes, net force is the combination of both the forces. And at the last, application. Now, students, write down this question in your physics copy. Thank you.